This is the time that I said goodbye to this Fuji X-T1. It was my wife's camera for the longest time. I got this camera for her as a gift back in 2016. It came with the famous 18 to 55mm f2.8-4. This lovely setup traveled to 3 different continents and took many memorable photos. The first time that I saw this camera in the wild was back in November 2014. I had my Leica M8 and I was doing some street photography that I met this guy with his Fuji X-T1 and the 56mm lens. Back in the day, my wife had a Nikon D3100 and I had the Leica M8. Then I sold my Leica M8 and got a Sony A7. And soon I got a Leica M240, which I still have today. My wife was excited to try the Sony A7, but she didn't like it, and after testing a few cameras, she decided on a Fuji X-T1. During all these years, my wife insisted on using just this camera with a kit lens, and she always refused to upgrade the camera or the lens. There are a lot of nice things about this camera. First of all, the dials. In fact, I think it was the first successful retro-style mirrorless camera. Then it is the build quality and responsiveness. It was better than a lot of other mirrorless cameras at the time. Also the kit lens, that was and still is one of the best kit lenses ever made. Finally, the EVF was one of the best at the time. Even by today's standards, it is still very nice. Of course, the camera has some downsides too. The most important, in my opinion, is not being full frame. Also, the X-Trans color filter is not for everyone, and you need to learn to process the RAW files properly. There are also some less important cons. For example, it doesn't have a joystick. Also, it has only one memory card and video is not very good. Also, it doesn't have any USB charging. Of course, I personally think that the pros are much stronger than the cons, but my opinion didn't matter in keeping the camera. My wife just liked the camera because she liked the pictures coming out of it. So finally in 2024 and after 8 years, my wife decided it's time to let this camera go. Her logic was she's so busy these days that she doesn't have time to do street photography. And when we are traveling, she's happy using her iPhone. And if she wants to take more serious pictures, she can simply use one of my cameras. When she told me about selling the X-T1, my first answer was no, let's keep it. But I noticed that even I don't use this camera anymore. Not because I don't like it, but because I'm doing more and more film photography these days. And if I want digital, I have my Leica M240. So with all that, it was finally time to find a new home for our lovely Fuji. Goodbye Fuji X-T1. We will never forget you. So that's it. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. Also feel free to follow me on Instagram and X, also known as Twitter.